Both my guests have been travelling the world, encouraging Africans to return home. This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield, and we'll find out why Angel Jones, the founder and chief executive of the Homecoming Revolution, and Yusuf Abramjee from Lead SA are calling Africans to come home, because you've been doing this, Angel Jones, for as long as I've been alive, at least. That's how long it feels.
It's actually been 12 years officially. I lived in London for 7 years, returned home to start Homecoming Revolution, and now we're in our 12th year. It's now a commercial venture.
Have you kept track of how many South Africans you've had repatriate?
We know that in the past 5 years, 359,000 skilled South African professionals have returned
359,000?
That is a lot of people.
359,000?
That's almost 360,000 South Africans.
360,000. Can we call them 360,000 or thereabouts? I think that's a correct
fair
number.
Enough.
There we go.
The brain drain has officially reversed.
There we go. And that's really good news. So over the last decade or so, we've seen more than 1/3 people come back to South Africa. Let's simplify it that way. Yusuf, why are you getting involved?
You know, it took Angel 12 years to invite me to one of our roadshows, Bruce, so I had a free trip to London, and there we went. And let me say to you, I addressed the audience on the weekend, and just to watch the smiles on the faces of individuals when you share the South African story, 20 years of freedom, and yes, Nkandla, and yes, crime, and yes, all the other problems of corruption, people are still inspired to say, we are seriously thinking of coming home. And the feedback I'm having up to today after our trip to London is, we want to come home. What is on offer? And people are obviously concerned about some of the challenges which government we call them problems, which we have. And that shouldn't be a deterrent for people to come home. And really, Angel, when I saw some of the work that has been put in by Homecoming Revolution, it is a campaign that I think we need to extend. It needs support. And I told the CEO of Barclays, who was one of the exhibitors, I don't understand why you're not putting money into this project. I know FNB has been one of the major sponsors. Standard Bank was there. A lot of corporates were there, chartered accounting firms and so on. But I think Homecoming Revolution is something that we need to grow and develop. And here we have a passionate South African who really is trying her best to make sure that people with skill come home.
Why have you taken it Africa-wide? Why not the focus still on South Africa? Have you run out of candidates?
Because Africa is now open for business. The rest of the continent is where South Africa was 10 years ago. Many South African companies are expanding into the continent as well. And we believe this is a model that has worked, with showing stories of people who've come back to inspire you, showing not just the jobs, but the schools, the property, the entrepreneurial opportunities. It's a model that works, and we have a very bold vision that South Africa's role for the rest of the continent can be fundamental. And so the idea of causing this massive wave of repatriation to the continent of as many talented Africans abroad as possible is a dream we are daring to put into action.
Are you finding that people are just looking for an excuse to go and buy the ticket? But they're nervous, as Yusuf refers to the crime, the issues of Nkandla, the corruption, the systemic corruption that we have in our society. It's quite draining.
60% of our attendees normally return home within the next 6 months. We found over 40% of our attendees have been away for longer than 15 years. But we say to people, if there's a little inkling you have about what's it actually like back home, come and hear the stories, come and find out. Because it's important that people arm themselves with the facts, even if they're not ready to return home immediately, that they actually know the good bits that are going on back home at the same time.
Yusuf, I mean, you recently had uninvited guests jump over your wall at home and open fire on you and your family. Do you tell that story? Do you say, guess what, guys, I had some blokes jump over the wall the other day?
Indeed, I did share the story, and people were obviously shocked. Millions of South Africans, Bruce, fall victim to crime. I could have simply put my head under the sand. I could have packed my bags and say I'm moving away to the UK, but that is not our solution. We have to find a solution to the crime problem. We have to find a solution to the lack of service delivery. And as much as we don't like what politicians say, there is a good story to be told. And yes, we have many problems which we have to tackle head on. And crime is a deterrent. Everyone is worried about their safety. We live behind high walls. We live with electric fencing, with CCTV, with alarms. But that shouldn't be a deterrent. I mean, everywhere in the world you have a crime problem. And that is why I'm more adamant, after falling victim to crime myself, to make a difference, to see what can we as ordinary South Africans do. And that is a philosophy of Lead South Africa, is to say, become an active citizen. Don't just keep quiet. Roll up your sleeves. I mean, we can't just blame everything on government. I mean, we do blame it on government, but there is something we as ordinary citizens can do. And we need to grow that philosophy. And really, when you share these stories with with expats abroad, it really makes them think. And since I came back, I was saying to Angel earlier, I've been flooded with requests on Facebook, on Twitter, on emails. Why do I have to come back to South Africa? And when you tell them why we need the professors, the engineers, the teachers, the doctors, people really want to come back. And that is why I want to raise the issue again, Angel. I can't understand why government won't have an incentive for people with skill to come back. I think it was existing years ago.
In the 1970s, government would bring engineers in. The UK, Maggie Thatcher destroyed the unions and helped break the part of the UK economy before she fixed it again. And loads of engineers came to South Africa, saw opportunities in this country for themselves. But what happens also when people have been out of the country for a decade or two is they tend to marry foreigners, sometimes quite high-powered foreigners, who arrive in South Africa and are told, oh, no, you can't have a work permit. Government really needs to get its finger out on this one, Angel.
Absolutely, and we are lobbying government on best practice models, one which does include the idea of giving foreign spouses a work permit. Also, with those truly scarce skills, is opening it up to foreigners, because we know that for every one skilled worker that returns home, almost 9 new jobs are created, both in the informal and the informal sector. So it's not a barrier to unemployment, it's actually creating employment. So we do work, we have an official alliance with Brand South Africa. We've toured many South African embassies around the world together, but we would love to see real action put into place, and less red tape for the settling home process, less red tape for entrepreneurial ventures from homecomers and in the wider sphere. So, you know, the more you can help us lobby, the more the better.
What can 248 million do, Angel?
Why would you pick a number like that, Yusuf? Why would you pick a number like that?
Just on the top of my head, Bruce.
But how about a tax incentive? You come back for the first 12 months, you've been out of the country for more than a decade, and you have got a scarce skill, you pay no tax for the first year. Help you repatriate, help you settle in, help you buy your first home, help you get your family into schools,
I think the incentives are very important, and government should look at ways of speeding up the process, giving them an incentive, home affairs, work permits, and so on. Interestingly enough, I met a guy in London that is a British citizen, and he came after Angel inspired him during a last roadshow to come and work as an accountant. And he's made South Africa his home. And I think these are the ways we need to showcase South Africa. I mean, we have a beautiful country, we're celebrating 20 years of freedom, and South Africa is not only about Oscar Pistorius and Shireen Indewani. I think that is a message we need to get across, and that is what we said to the audience. We have lots to offer. And I think the more we showcase South Africa, not only in the UK, in the USA, in other parts of Europe, in Australia, I think we'll be able to attract a lot of skill back into South Africa. The figures you gave of 360,000 is a phenomenal figure. It shows that people have come back. People are making South Africa their home, which is their home. And really, we need to continue this drive. And I firmly believe that government should really come 100% behind this initiative to make sure that we get them people back.
After a decade, I would have thought they would be on board by now.
You know, we don't rely on any of the red tape to cause the changes. We often find that people, when they really want to come, they'll make a plan and make it happen. But I do think this idea of the foreign spouse and the foreigners being able to get work permits would be amazing. So we can certainly make sure that we talk to enough of the right officials there. I think what's also important to note is what Homecoming Revolution now is doing is encouraging South Africans to view themselves as Africans. So at the event we had Nigerians and Ghanaians and Kenyans also to bring everybody home, and this idea that South Africa's role, we aren't just sat at the bottom of the continent anymore with this wall between us and the rest of Africa. This idea that we are all together to look and shape and build and really make friends with our neighbours in a very good building way is a role we are now also very excited to be playing.
When you look at it, you've been focused extensively on the United Kingdom for most of the last decade. That was your personal experience. You knew lots of people. You had a network in place. Yusuf suggesting that you're taking it broader than that?
Absolutely. We're going to be doing a USA roadshow along the East Coast, Toronto, DC, Boston, New York in September, October. We're looking at being in Europe at some stage too, and then we might just go off to Perth to bring home a few of these.
It's the closest stopping off point, yes,
engineers
absolutely.
And construction people that
Can I just say, I love the idea, Bruce, of making it continental. Historically, Homecoming Revolution was about South Africa, and meeting fellow Africans from Kenya, from other parts of the continent, is really inspiring. I mean, I met officials from employees of Group 5. They were recruiting staff for the other projects in Africa through Homecoming Revolution. We met the likes of KPMG, looking for accountants to be deployed in other parts of Africa. And I really think that this philosophy of making it continental is something that we can grow and develop, because, you know, the world is not only about South Africa, it's about our continent.
Oh, have you set yourself some targets? When do you get 500,000 Africans back home?
Absolutely. So we are bold enough to say that in the next 5 years we want another 5 offices in Africa. Currently we have a footprint in 5 and another 5. And yes, let's put it out there on international television. What should we say? In 3 years, 500,000 skilled Africans.
And are other countries putting these incentives in place that we talk about South Africa not doing? Are we seeing the Kenyans being more actively encouraging?
It's a wonderful question. What we're seeing and also working with different governments on is the idea of diaspora investment funds too,
yes.
Not just the remittances but the investments. So we're looking at that because some of the governments don't want all of their skills home because they want the remittances.
Absolutely.
So that's an interesting one. But the idea of collaborating as much as possible with public and private sector, even if it's about building separate models that it's either virtual repatriation of skills or temporary repatriation of teaching and medical skills for a sort of 3 to 6 month stint that sits outside the curriculum or whatever it is. We're working with the International Organization for Migration and really finding best practice models to spread the word and give to enough other organizations on the continent to roll out to.
As far as South Africa is concerned, the elections on the 7th of May make the slightest difference, Yusuf? I mean, you're a newsman at heart, in addition to your lead SA work. You like a good headline as much as the next guy, actually more than the next guy. Do the elections matter?
Well, I think they do. I think the Nkandla scandal has obviously got a lot of international interest. Oscar Pistorius will continue to make the headlines. But, you talk of South Africa being crime-ridden. And I shared the story while in London. We're hosting the Crime Stoppers International Conference, where I'm actively involved in my capacity as Crime Line in October. And just recently we had a directors meeting in Cape Town. And many of the directors from across the world came to South Africa for the first time. And let me tell you, they were pleasantly surprised. They thought South Africa was a third world dump. They were surprised at our road infrastructure, at the economy, at the media and the freedom of expression that we enjoy. And I think this is a South African story that we need to share. We need to tell the world that aside from the expats coming home, aside from foreigners wanting to come and invest in our country, we are a nation that we can be very, very proud of. And I think these are the stories that we need to tell. And I'm sure, like we've had in previous elections, we're going to have a smooth election and people will vote for whoever they want to vote for, and those that will take power will take power. And really we need to have a democracy which we have been enjoying for the past 20 years, of something that we as South Africans can be very proud of. And that is why I think, Bruce, people like Angel who are passionate about South Africa, like you and myself, we have to take this message to other parts of the world.
And at that point, we have to leave it. I think we should create a new website. We'll call it evangelists.com. And that's the way we will drive it. Angel Jones, the founder and chief executive of the ever-growing Homecoming Revolution, and Yusuf Abramjee, who is with Lead SA. They've been calling Africans to come home and are seeing it going beyond South Africa's borders into places like Kenya and Ghana and others as well. Thank you for watching. There'll be more tonight to tomorrow. Good night.